I'll give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse the evil.
Hello, welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. Here we are continuing our study in the book of Zechariah. You know, interesting fun fact. Hey, nice to see you, Christian. Interesting fun fact. You know, because in the New Testament it's called Zechariah. I don't know that it ever really, I think for a long time I didn't notice the E. And I assume the Old Testament was the same. Like, it really stuck out to me this time. I'm like, have I thought it was Zechariah for like 30 years? I'm not sure about that. Well, because the son of Zacharias in the New Testament. Zacharias, the son of Barachias. So it could be the Greek influence. Let's read from chapter 5, verse 1. Then I turned and lifted up mine eyes and looked. I'm going to move back. These glasses just are more distant. And looked, and behold, a flying roll. And he said unto me, What seest thou? And I answered, I see a flying roll. The length thereof is 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 10 cubits. Then said he unto me, This is the curse that goeth forth over the face of the whole earth. For every one that stealeth shall be cut off, as on this side according to it, and every one that sweareth shall be cut off, as on that side according to it. We're going to have to comment on that again. And I will bring it forth, saith the Lord of hosts, and it shall enter into the house of the thief, and into the house of him that sweareth falsely by my name, and it shall remain in the midst of his house, and shall consume it with the timber thereof, and the stones thereof. Then the angel that talked with me went forth and said unto me, Lift up now thine eyes, and see what is this that goeth forth. And I said, What is it? And he said, This is an ephah that goeth forth. He said, moreover, that this is their resemblance through all the earth. And behold, there was lifted up a talent of lead. And this is a woman that sitteth in the midst of the ephah. And he said, This is wickedness. And he cast it into the midst of the ephah. And he cast the weight of lead upon the mouth thereof. Then I lifted up mine eyes, and looked, and behold, there came out 2 women, and the wind was in their wings, for they had wings like the wings of a stork. And they lifted up the ephah between the earth and the heaven. Then said I to the angel that talked with me, Whither do these bear the ephah? And he said unto me, To build it an house in the land of Shinar, and it shall be established, and set there upon her own base. Let's go one more chapter, because they're short, though deep. And I turned, and lifted up mine eyes, and looked, and behold, there came 4 chariots out from between 2 mountains. And the mountains were mountains of brass. In the first chariot were red horses, and in the second chariot, black horses, and in the third chariot, white horses, and in the fourth chariot, grizzled and bay horses. Then I answered and said unto the angel that talked with me, What are these, my Lord? And the angel answered and said unto me, These are the 4 spirits of the heavens, which go forth from standing before the Lord of all the earth. The black horses which are therein go forth into the north country, and the white go forth after them, and the grizzled go forth toward the south country. And the bay went forth and sought to go, that they might walk to and fro through the earth. And he said, Get you hence, walk to and fro through the earth? So they walked to and fro through the earth. Then cried he upon me, and spake unto me, saying, Behold, these that go toward the north country have quieted my spirit in the north country. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Take of them of the captivity, even of Heldai, and Tobijah, and Jediah, which are come from Babylon, and come thou the same day, and go into the house of Josiah the son of Zephaniah. Then take silver and gold, and make crowns, and set them upon the head of Joshua the son of Josedek, the high priest. And speak thou unto him, saying, Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, Behold, the man whose name is the branch, and he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord. Even he shall build the temple of the Lord, and he shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne. And he shall be a priest upon his throne, and the counsel of peace shall be between them both. And the crowns shall be to Helam, and to Tobijah, and to Jediah, and to Hen, the son of Zephaniah, for a memorial in the temple of the Lord. And they that are far off shall come and build in the temple of the Lord, and ye shall know that the Lord of hosts hath sent me unto you. And this shall come to pass, if ye will diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God. And then we see the promises concerning all these things are so conditional. The bringing forth of the temple, so divinely choreographed. And it's not just like divinely choreographed like the Assyrian, where it's like, oh, he's there to do, Isaiah chapter 10, 9 or whatever, it's around there. It's in his heart to cut off nations and such. He doesn't really think he's doing Yahweh's will, but he is, regardless of that. Just like the high priest was prophesying when he said that one man should die that the nation should perish not. We don't want to be, that kind of things, but thus it can be. And, the idea that if there was to be another temple built under the current conditions, I would not want to be responsible for being the one building it, because it's not this blessed thing like I see with Joshua here. Jesus essentially is his name. Just like Joshua coming out of Egypt, coincidence, yes, but also more than a coincidence, because in the Bible things are. Is it a coincidence that Jesus was born 4,000 years into the narrative? That's much more interesting to me than the idea that, that's how old the planet is. No, it's because that's precisely when Jesus came into the world. That's why it's that way. It's like it's a predictive prophetic narrative more than it is some sort of scientific look at the planet. That's not how it's to be read. It's leading up to Jesus. That's what it's pointing towards. Okay, so let's go to where we began for our verse by verse look at this. There's so many really interesting things here. I wanted to go back just a little bit about the curse. Just the part about everyone that stealeth shall be cut off as on this side according to it, and everyone that sweareth shall be cut off as on that side according to it, according to what's written in the curse. Sins returning to Babylon, sins carried lady in the basket, called wickedness, return to the past. Yeah, the land of Shinar is, I've heard people come, it's some ancient name of Babylon, essentially. Right, and so it's going back to the land, the wickedness that they brought with them, and that caused them to be carried into captivity. So returning to the source in a sense, because the source of their sin was idolatry. That was Israel's chief sin, is that they couldn't break from the past of their idolatry. They kept turning back to other gods. And it's throughout the Old Testament that the prophets complain about it exceedingly. It isn't until after the Babylonian captivity that they really stop that and become truly monotheistic. Yeah, because it's like the Israelites there's no evidence that they were ever monotheistic until, Moses preached one God, but The Israelites themselves were just like, oh, okay, we worship Yahweh now, but they quite easily slipped back into worshiping whatever God they fancied or seemed to be able to help them, or for whatever purpose, or however it seemed, or whatever, as it seems right unto man, as it often is. Whatever seems right to man, well, that's what God wants because it seems right to me. It's so easy to be wise in your own eyes and not consider it's like, okay, my instincts are not always right. And even my knowledge isn't always right. I've made mistakes in the past. I might make a mistake in the future. I might even be making a mistake right now. I don't want that to be true, but I have to at least consider it. So, I don't know, just the part of as on the side. I didn't really talk about that at all. I don't think it's hard to understand. I think it's saying like it's, like the book written within and on the back side, sealed with 7 seals, like that kind of idea of like a roll that has writing on each side and it has curses. And these curses, and so they're going to be cut off as it's written on one side and as it's written on the other side. That's all it's really saying, I think. Yeah, the Babylonian captivity is a case of history repeating itself because it bears a strong resemblance to the Assyrian captivity, which created the Samaritans, which I always think is a very interesting case because the Samaritans practiced a religion that could be compared to Islam, as far as I'm concerned. They practiced a Judaism that was not approved by the Jews. Yeah, no new sin under the sun. Same. Yeah, man's sins are not. There's nothing. When it comes to human beings and human nature, there is nothing new. When you read Ecclesiastes, you might say, "Well, a cell phone, that's new." It's not. No, it's not that. It's that people. Read about the subject of Ecclesiastes. It's about man's plight. It's not about technology. It's not about designs and art and stuff like that. There's new stuff like that. Songs. He knew there were new songs and stuff, but songs themselves aren't new, and human nature isn't new. Don't think you're the first person ever to do a da-da-da. It's like, it's been going on for thousands of years. So, going down to where we are, right, with the Ephah. The angel goes forth and says, hey, lift up your eyes. What do you see what's going forth? What is it? An ephah is a measure. It's a measure. I think it's like seeing a gallon. It's like he's looking at like something that is like, oh, that is a vase that is an ephah size. Like if you saw a gallon of milk, and it's probably bigger than that. I don't bother with the detail of like how big is an ephah. It's big enough. It's a big container. Well, is it a big container? I should check on that. Is there anything to be there? Should I check that? Let's see. This is ephah. Shouldn't be so cavalier about it, right? Well, they say it's a basket, right? The woman in a basket. It's an ephah. I assume it's a measure, like, and it makes me think of like things like a measure of wheat for a penny and 3 measures of barley for a penny. The ephah just means differing measures. It means a measure, a bushel, like a bushel basket. Okay, it's a basket. It's some measure. Okay, that's what I mean. It's really arbitrary. It doesn't matter. It's like I see some measure, some basket, some thing, like a 50-gallon barrel. He said, this is their resemblance. It's usually 55 gallons, actually. This is what they look like. This is an ephah that goes. So you think about it like this. In modern world, think about like a container ship traveling. It goes. The container, it goes. It travels. And an ephah was a way of putting things in, to ship them. Because it has to be somewhat of a shipping container, basically, right? Islam Christian, I'm also studying this time. Yeah. I might check that out. Because I'm a Christian. I don't think there's a reason for Christians and Muslims to be hostile. I think we can have sincere debates and live peaceably. Their religion calls for it. I don't see where our religion is incompatible with that idea. It calls for us to be true people of the book, though, and they would have a problem with a lot of the pagan elements in our society. And that's what causes some conflict, but not the main conflict, because honestly, they're as susceptible to those temptations as we are. We're all susceptible to the same temptations. But we allow it so much in our society. I could see, there are people within our own society who are very hostile to it. I'm hostile to it. I just don't believe in, essentially libertarian in my outlook. I think when the government starts intervening, you don't know where to tell it to stop. And so it starts telling people what to do and what to think. It's like you can, as long as it's doing what you want it to do, it's great. But as soon as it turns on you, then you're like, oh, maybe I don't want the government to be so. It's not Islam Channel. It's Prophecy North versus South Kingdoms. Oh, interesting. Yeah, because there's a sort of a Kingdom of the North, Kingdom of the South thing going on there. That might be an interesting thought, because it's just an overall thing. But I always like to think about the individual human beings involved in all of it. Like average Muslims are not crazy terrorists any more than, in America, your average white guy is a redneck about to shoot up a black church or you know what I mean? Like that's a caricature of a Christian right winger racist type thing. It's like that's a really small number of people. The people who are really whacked out like that. Now they can do a lot of damage. It doesn't take, if you think about like the numbers, when you consider like we live in a nation, or like any nation, like where you're talking about millions and millions of people, like a very small percentage, 1% is going to represent hundreds of thousands or millions of people, depending on the size of the country, and they can have a huge effect. It's not Islam. Okay, right. Yeah, there's like the King of the North, the King of the South, and I do think there's something to that, because I do think Western civilization is, when it talks about the latter time of their kingdom, this is that same thing. Western civ is the Greco-Roman world. I mean, that's what it was. That's what they taught me in school, that the Renaissance was about. It was about bringing back the Greco-Roman world to the Western Empire, which had crumbled into the Dark Ages, not because of Christianity, but because of Augustine and his philosophy. Because there was no collapse in the East. In the Eastern Roman Empire, there was no, like, Dark Age. Well, there was a collapse, but they didn't have a Dark Age. It's a number. I might check it out. I don't know if it's something like interesting. It sounds interesting. I'd definitely be willing to look at it. That's easy to remember too. Also, it's got a nice. It's not hard to remember at Islam Christianity. So I'm always willing to listen to people. It might be interesting. It depends. Because sometimes, like I said, sometimes I don't like things that frustrate me too much. That's why I don't listen to like Baptists, or dispensationalists. I don't listen to them to like rage. I don't like to enrage myself. Not that I would necessarily become enraged, but I would feel motivated to do something. And I already have so many things I'm trying to do. It's like, so I'm like, oh, one more thing I feel compelled to do because I hear this person saying these things and I want to respond. Sometimes that's hard. It's nice when you like things and you don't feel like you have to respond. You can just respond something nice. You can say, hey, I like your video. That's always a relief. All right, let's continue. All right. So this is this measure, the shipping. It ships things off, and this is what it looks like through all the earth, okay? This is what they look like. This is their resemblance. Behold, there was lifted up a talent of lead, and this is a woman that sitteth in the midst of the ephah. And he said, this is wickedness. I got to look at a different translation on that, though, because it just seems worded so weird. And that may be the Hebrew that's just, sometimes the translation is awkward. That's one of the things I like about the King James, because even if it has to be awkward, it just lets that happen, and then you wrestle with it. It's not like there aren't other translations that are more interpretive, like the NIV, which I used to joke about. I still joke. I call it the devil's translation because of the way people freak out of the fact that they changed Lucifer to Morning Star. But the truth is, in Isaiah 14, Lucifer is like a Latin term. From the ancient Hebrew, it was Halel ben Shakar, bright star, son of the dawn. I think he's just talking to him ironically. It's like, who do you think you are? The son of God? You're not the son of God. You're not the one who sits on the throne. You will be brought down to Sheol. You'll be brought down to the sides of the pit. That was one of the early songs I ever did, was Isaiah 14. So I think it's a very important chapter in understanding, I don't know what you call it, Satanology. When I was young, I was really really into understanding the devil, I become a lot less concerned about it. I guess once you understand him, you just are like, okay, that's the enemy, okay? Yeah, me too. I like the King James Version. It's a great place to start as your base text. It's not that hard to understand. People, I can't, these and the thys. Now, granted, this sentence here is a little awkward. A little bit, it's just, or it's just like, it's not the sentences. It's just the phrases. He said, moreover, this is their resemblance through all the earth. I'm like, okay, I want to be sure about that. It's just these really, I'm like, I want to know, do scholars who are more modern have a different opinion? Because I don't disrespect all modern scholarship just because I prefer the King James. I don't think the NIV is a devil's translation, but I do take note that they do interpret. They don't just translate. There are times when they take out like the literal thing and they'll idiomatically or metaphorically fill in the blank for you, so you don't have to think. And when we come across that, I usually point it out. I don't have like a memorized list of these things, but it's just a phenomenon that you observe if you study different versions of the Bible. And it's a fine translation, but everyone should be warned. You are missing details. It's not a good translation for deep study. It's maybe for casual reading or for a new believer. You know why? When I first believed, I couldn't handle the King James. I had two Bibles. I had the King James and something called the Book. And it's like this, it's a version of the Living Bible, which is a paraphrase. And I couldn't read the King James at first. It was really hard, just because I tried to read Isaiah first. And so then I started with the book, and I went with the Living Translation, and I got through some stuff, and I was like, yeah. And then as I became more familiar and I understood better, I moved up, because the King James is sort of like, it is kind of the king of translations, and it is challenging. It's not, it's not impossible, because generations have found meaning in it. It's especially, there's so many things that are just perfectly clear in English to the modern listener in the King James. It just sounds more elegant. It sounds more formal. Even in the King James time, they didn't talk like this. Not precisely. I mean, it was formal speech. It was not how the guy talked down at the gas station. It's not like how Paul wrote his letters in Koine Greek, as they say, in street Greek, versus like the Old Testament, where you have things that are more serious. Well, not more serious. They're written in a more formal way. Anyways, this is a resemblance throughout the earth. Okay, I was going to look at the verse 6 here in the NIV. I'll bring it up on the screen. What do they say here? Look up and see what is appearing. I asked, what is it? He replied, it's a basket. And he added, this is the iniquity of the people throughout all the land. Oh, so they can see, this is a little different. They're like, no, those two things are connected. And I wasn't properly connecting those because of the way it was written. See, they say, this is an ephah that goeth forth. He said, moreover, this is their resemblance through all the earth. So I must have missed something in that resemblance that these guys are picking up on. And that's what I mean. It's like, that's maybe just like I said, scholarship has come a ways since 1611. And we don't even actually, the version of the King James we read is not the 1611 version. I have a copy of that. That is nearly illegible, especially because the S's are printed as F's. They did a reprint in the 1800s, which is the one we're familiar with. And we call it the King James. But it's not even the original King James. Because King James was, 1611. That's a ways back. So, that's a useful bit of information. This is the iniquity of the people throughout the land. All right, we're going to look into that in a minute. Then the cover of lead was raised, and there in the basket sat a woman. See, they definitely shove you along. They don't translate it literally. They're framing it for you, and sometimes that's helpful. Sometimes, though, it can obscure. And also, it's fun to figure these things out on your own. It's also fun to look at this, and then I'll go back to the King James and see if I can piece it together from the Hebrew. He said, this is wickedness, and he pushed her back into the basket, and pushed its lead cover down on it. I think it's funny the way they frame this. I like that. It makes sense as a vision. They definitely made sense of this where I was struggling, and now in the NIV they're giving me they're taking me by the hand and leading me on the way, and that's what the NIV does. But that's not necessarily always what you want. Just like with commentaries, you shouldn't rely on commentaries. You shouldn't rely on one translation or one thing, because they were all done by men. Every translation came from men's work. I love the King James, but the King James only people are a little silly because the King James has mistakes, just like every translation, or most every translation. I don't know if there's a perfect translation or not. But in any case, I've never found one. And though many have tried, and there's some pretty cool translations out there I've seen by individuals and groups, like people who did their own projects. And, but the cool thing is the way that, essentially the Bible is pretty much the same. Most of when people freak out about weird, there's alternate readings, so many alternate readings in the New Testament, man. We can't trust the New Testament because the alternate readings are so insignificant. It's not like suddenly Jesus said, go and sin some more. And it was that's what he said. He said, no, go and sin all you like. Let grace abound. He didn't say things like that. It didn't thou shalt commit adultery. There's nothing what are this? I always ask people and say, well, the Bible's changed since it's I know that manuscripts sometimes differ a little bit. How significant are those differences? Do you know what they are? Can you point them out? I know there are hundreds of little things that this one has a different T at the end or something. I don't know. Anyways, a lot of it is overblown, and the people who overblow it don't even really know what they're talking about. And if you do know what you're talking about, it's very easy to just brush them aside because they really are just yapping and using talking points to try to undermine the faith of the weak. And that's how people work. All right, so I want to go back. Not to this screen, but actually to the, I really want to piece together through the Hebrew what it was saying here. So I'm going to go back to the King James Hebrew version here on Bible Hub, and I have it way too wide. Still too wide. I probably had the other one too wide too, didn't I? Whatever. Sorry. Okay. Behold, a flying roll, poems, psalms, proverbs, of plagiarism, but common at the time. Well, a lot of the Psalms have a lot of similarities and stuff. There's stuff like that, but it's plagiarism is everything is it's funny to me when they talk about AI training on things and people getting upset. The AI is looking at actors and training on their acting to act itself. Right? And then that's like stealing. Yeah. Well, to me, it's the New Testament is derivative of the Old Testament. There's connecting fibers all over the place. They're quoting it. They're citing it for their authority. It's inspired by it. There's nothing prophetic in the New Testament I cannot trace back to the Old Testament, because I've studied the Old Testament prophets significantly, more significantly than most Christians. I wouldn't say I'm some sort of expert on them, but it's as far as me as a lay person, it's been an area of my specialty, especially the book of Isaiah and stuff. And I don't know, people they want to undermine your faith, and they just want to have whatever they think. It's it's meaning. It actually makes sense, because some people, it's almost like they worship the book itself. I even had a pastor once be declare that the Bible, he's this book is God. And I'm no. That's not what I believe. I don't believe that the book is God. I mean, in a metaphorical sense, or not in a spiritual sense, his spirit inspired it, and I learned about God through the book. But to call the book itself God, I don't worship the Bible. I worship the God whose message was communicated to me through the Bible. Oh, as far whatever, or even the book Noah and Genesis, and the story of the creation being this was different, and And these are like the beginning of Genesis feels like a conglomeration of several ideas, and then suddenly you get to Abraham. It's like, it is what it is. I don't, like the idea, I don't have to have the Bible be a magical book to know that Jesus rose from the dead and that I should put my faith in him, because that's the basis of my faith. It's in the resurrection and power of Jesus Christ, the risen Lord. That's where the book is the messenger. It carries the message. It informs me. It instructs me. It is like the law of my schoolmaster. Even the New Testament, we could be legalistic about the New Testament, and that's why Christians hate each other, because they are, and we could be just as legalistic about that. Because to me, like the whole idea of taking Romans 10:9 and saying, if you confess with your lips the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. You will. That's like dogmatism. That's such. It's like, I don't think that's how the Bible is to be read. It's like, you will be saved if you believe these things, but you got to really believe. You can't just like say you believe and claim, they make it seem like such a sign on the dotted line insurance policy. And it's wrong. The woman in the basket, the angel talk, I just want to see it. And I said, what is it? This is the F of the, he said, the resemblance. What? Wow. Now, this is kind of cool. I like this. Unfortunately, you can't see the pop-up thing on my thing, which I'm going to bring up in a second. Why is this not? There we go. It's decided now. It does. It's just like, no, we're not going to allow you. Paul, you can narrow this as much as you like, but you will not be allowed to see all that text. You will not be. All right, that's close enough, though, actually, because whatever, it'll do. This word here, resemblance, is an eye. I like that. That's interesting. A yin. And it can mean a lot of things. In the King James, it's translated affliction, outward appearance, think best, color, conceit, be content, countenance, displease, eye, brow, or eyebrow, eyesight, face, favor, fountain, furrow. Yeah, the idea of the face, the eye, the light of the body is the eye, humble, knowledge, look well, openly. It's definitely not the evil eye as far as I can tell. There's a displeased, well, because the eye can be, you have my eye, in a bad sense. The eyes of the Lord are continually upon his people, and they're also upon the wicked. Literally or figuratively, an eye. By analogy, a fountain. Oh, yeah, as the eye of the landscape, because as it opens up and spews out. Affliction, outward appearance, before, think best, color, conceit, fine. Probably a primitive word. So it's just the word that means an eye. So it has a lot of figurative application. And here on the right-hand side, we can see from the Englishman's Concordance, every time this word ayin appears in the Bible. Like when your eyes will be open in Genesis, right? And so all the way down. And also in your sight. It's not good in your sight, in your eye. And here in Genesis 16, there's a fountain in the way, an eye in the way. We use eyes for things like the eye of the hurricane. They would cause a fountain in the landscape. That was an eye. Like the eye of the needle. So in your sight, in your eye. Let's see if we can get some of the weird ones. Oh, look at it. For a possession in the presence of the children, in the eye of the children, in their eyes. But they put it as in the presence. I don't know why they couldn't translate it eye. See, my idea would be, okay, translate it as consistently as possible. I mean, give it eye as often, like make it eye as often as possible. But they always got to mess with it. Okay, it's too big. We'll go back, but that's interesting. So it's the eye in the figurative sense, the eye. So you're saying there were other scrolls and wise men at the time who wrote same thing, not just the men led by the Spirit. Well, where did they learn these things? They learned from other wise men. There were wise men from the East who came to the Lord Jesus' thing. There are just a few mysteries within Christianity that are unknown to other religions. The Son of God, who he is. And the access we have through him and the power of the election of God to serve him on earth and to that is such an honor and a privilege. That's a lot of Christians, they don't get it. It's like you've been called with a high calling, not just to salvation, but to sonship. It's not, there's the base parts of the matter. Yeah, he hath shown thee, O man, what is good and what the Lord requires of thee, but to do justly and to walk and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. There isn't a religion on the earth that hasn't figured out some form of that, except maybe the Aztecs, right? But they had their own form of mercy. They had no mercy towards their enemies, but towards their own. The heathen always also believe in the same things. They just, they will hold it exclusively for themselves in the wicked way that most people do. The way we hold certain things sacred just to our immediate family. It's like, this is a family matter, and everyone else is excluded. There's a sort of natural order to that. But if we're all going to enjoy the same planet together, we have to expand our understanding of who our family is to every man, woman, and child on the earth, because we're all created in his image, and we need to live together in peace. And if that's going to happen, it would be best if we all treated each other like we believed the others, even if they're not, as though we believe they were God's children. And I mean in the sense that I believe, that someone who God is looking after, especially like the Son of God, because in as much as you've done it to the least of these, my brethren, you've done it to me. And who he's going to regard as his brethren, it's going to be those that gave him drink, those who were kind, those that did charity. It's not that you earn your way to salvation, because everyone's salvation requires mercy. But he paid the price. And he's called us with a heavenly, holy calling. What are we going to do? Ignore it? For some, I think it's not that they ignore it, it's just they're not been told. The church is, I don't know. Different churches, some places are better than others, That's the thing. We have a mixed bag. It's not all bad. It's easy to look at like the world as, what's the most popular stuff. Like to go to the temple in Jesus' day and to see the money changers and those that sell doves and to be like, man, but there was bright spots too, where you'd see people of great faith and he was encouraged by that. So, and the same thing in our day. It's not all dark. Never is. That's why. Otherwise, why would we bother? Why even try? And like, why not just fold our hands and forget about it? Because that is not what we've been called to do. People say, if you believe in destiny, why do you do anything? It's like, because my destiny is to do something. If you want your destiny to be to sit on your rear end and do nothing, I know what that destiny results in. It's called the man with one talent. He buried his talent in the earth, which to me is the equivalent of just having faith. It's like doing nothing with it. I have faith. Oh, I have faith. What'd you do with it? I buried it in the backyard. Yeah. Buried it in the backyard. And behold, there was lifted up a talent of lead, and this is a woman that sitteth in the midst of that. Okay. I guess that's like the eye. This is an ephah that goeth forth, and this is what this is their eye throughout the whole earth. This is how it seems. This is how it resembles. Okay, and what had the NIV said? Whatever. I want to know. I'm sorry, I want to know. What had it said? I can't go back there. Oh, I can. Nah. Yeah, whatever. In the next verse. The talent is lifted up. So the ephah has a lid, and that's the talent. I think the NIV is right. He didn't take a talent of lead from somewhere else. It's just there is a talent of lead on top of the ephah. That means it has a really heavy lid. I mean, though, I guess, a talent, there's this old joke when I was a kid, right? They say, what's heavier, a ton of feathers or a ton of bricks? And most kids will be like, well, a ton of bricks, of course, because the joke is, of course, it's a ton. A ton is a ton is a ton. But when you tell someone something, but here's the thing, it's about perception. When you tell someone something, is a talent of lead, and plus the fact that it is a lead lid, Yeah, I mean, he could have just said he took a lead lid or whatever, but the fact that it was a talent, that means it's heavy. It's not easy to open. It's going to hold it down. It's a heavy lid. And there's a woman in there, and he said, this is wickedness. So there's this like basket with this woman in it. It reminds me of Babylon. And this is Babylon, of course, because to them, it's going back to Shinar. And so it represents the wickedness of Babylon being carried back. And of course, in the New Testament, in the book of Revelation, we have Mystery Babylon. And one of the things about her that I find a cool connection is that she says, I sit a queen and am no widow and shall see no sorrow. She's a queen. Mystery Babylon. So who's her king? Well, it's the king of Babylon. And the king of Babylon is the one who said in chapter 14 of Isaiah, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will be like the Most High. And this is precisely where Paul is deriving his ideas that he speaks about in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. That's not to negate the Spirit, because the Spirit gives you the understanding to know that that is something that is not just a one-off. It didn't just happen in Babylon. It's a pattern. It's something that can happen again on a bigger scale in a much worse iteration. And that's what I think Antichrist is. That's what I think Mystery Babylon is, that final sinful whore. Tainted wine, worship, right. Her cup is filled with abominations and filthiness from her fornication. You know, the cup is supposed to be filled with wine, of course, and she's drunk on it, but it's not wine. It's something much more disgusting. The woman in white becomes the woman in red, right? There's 10 virgins, 5 wise, 5 foolish. What really happens to those virgins? They become fornicators, because that's what it is. She has fornication as her sin. She's not a widow, no. But, she was waiting for a husband. She was a virgin. She was waiting for a husband. But her husband, he took too long. And this other dude came along. And boy, he looked good. And so she got into bed with him and she became a fornicator. That's why she's not called, an adulterer. It's one of the interesting things that Jesus talked about. He said that divorce was forbidden except in the cause of fornication. He doesn't mention adultery because adultery, it was already the death penalty for adultery in marriage. So fornication, though, what he meant was, what he's talking about is when a woman had had sex before marriage. If she had been a fornicator, a man could divorce her. And that foreshadows what happens when Jesus returns with the great whore of Revelation. She is not an adulteress because she was not ever his wife. He had never formally taken her to wife. She was supposed to wait as a chaste virgin like Paul talked about. Let's see what you were saying. I can see you popping off comments there. Authoritarian power, drunken in power, religious power. Yeah. Power is a drunkening thing. It corrupts too, like drunkenness. The more power you have, I think it makes you make worse decisions because they become divorced from the consequences of these decisions. And authoritative power, authoritarian power, especially totalitarian power, the very point of it is to remove themselves from responsibility so that you do what they say. You have to do what they say. And if you say anything against it because it's hurting you, well, too bad. You don't get to do that anymore. Yeah, Harley with Kings, because they will bow to the authoritarian power. That's why I talked about the pandemic as being like a preview. I always thought it was like a warm-up exercise. I don't know if the end times are coming soon. I do think we're headed into even rougher times than the pandemic. Yeah, I'm sick of the presidents. The presidents are all wrong. And here's the thing. I do think, like Vladimir Putin said, some of them have ideas. But then they get into office and the men in dark suits show up and tell them how things are. And all of them have things that they can be blackmailed on. Like Trump, it may not be Jeffrey Epstein. It may be something else. I don't know what. He may be protecting other people. I'm sure there's plenty of people to protect, important people. Well, we can't have all these important people exposed. No, he's a good friend. Oh, he's a good donor. Oh, he's someone we're beholden to. the power and the money, it's so corrupting, and they all have something on them. You can tell the ones, you can tell they have nothing on. Marjorie Taylor Greene, they must have nothing on that woman because she just keeps being completely annoying to everyone in the politics. And she was a big Trump supporter, and now she says no, it's genocide. I was like, that's for me respect. Behold, the whirlwind of the Lord is gone forth in fury, even a torturous whirlwind. It shall fall tortuously on the head of the wicked. Behold, the anger of the Lord shall not return till he have performed the thoughts of his heart. In the latter days you will consider this perfectly. The whirlwind of the Lord goes forth, right? 4 winds, right? During the book of Revelation, we have the 4 winds being held back. But here we have a similar thing, right? The horsemen going to the different cardinal directions. It's a very interesting motif throughout the Bible. So let's see. Here's what I'm having trouble seeing with I'm like, all right, one looks like I can tell the last one's a church. I can't actually. I'll take my glasses off. All right, it's a puff of wind, a tornado, and a church. Yeah, you know what? No, Christianity is a mess because it's interesting. They're talking about there being a revival right now. And it's like, in people's turning to God, I can buy it. But not in like traditional churches. Well, maybe in certain churches, like Greek Orthodox churches, I've heard a lot of people turn into the Greek Orthodox. And maybe some other marginal churches probably. But a lot of the stuff that's getting us into this mess, like mainstream Christianity, and I'm talking like dispensationalism, that can't possibly be on the resurgence right now. Because whatever. If it is, it is. Whatever. People are looking for something. And they're always looking for something. So the woman sits in the midst of the thing. This is wickedness. He casts in the midst of that fowl, and casts weight upon the mouth thereof. He shuts it up. And then he lifted it out, and there came out 2 women, and the women was in their wings. Job 37:9. All right, I'll buy it. We just did Job, but I don't memorize every verse of it. It's a good reference. You must be preparing or something. Or whatever. Oh, yeah. Cold out of the north, sure. The beasts go down to the dens and remain in their places. Out of the south cometh the whirlwind, and cold out of the north. Now, the whirlwind of the Lord. That's a motif I've checked out a lot of places. Yeah, Psalm 58. There's like a north-south thing that goes on, right? It's part of nature. There's like a division of the world. The nations are divided. That doesn't mean they have to hate one another. You know what I mean? We can be divided without hating one another, without destroying one another. I mean, at times we've managed. And it's just a small number of people in control that are doing most of the damage. Most Americans, if they fully understood what was going on, wouldn't stand for what our government has been getting up to. We've been deceived for generations. You know, growing up, I believed a lot of the BS and the propaganda that I was fed. I didn't realize it was propaganda. You know? And the weird thing is that it's gotten worse, actually, but in getting worse, it's become more obvious, which I find interesting. Because in the old days, it seemed like there was definitely more of a difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. Like, they were definitely reluctant about getting into wars and stuff. Previously, there was a definite reluctance, especially after Vietnam. But that generation is gone, and they forgot the lessons of that. And now we think we can just do whatever. Once again, we think we're all powerful, which we're not. And we will soon find out that that is not true. America is not all powerful. America is in need of sadly, I say, a sharp lesson, a sharp rebuke. Now, principalities, powers, rulers of the darkness of this world, those are the things we fight. So these 2 women with the wind in their wings, they have wings like the wing of a stork. Stork is an unclean animal. I was taught to consider these women like a sort of a negative symbol, but they are carrying the evil thing away. I don't know that we have to interpret them too much. The interesting thing, I think, is this is the first and only image in the Bible of like that true white-winged angel. You know what I mean? Like of a female with white wings as a, you know what I mean? Like, it's interesting. Because usually the wings are not described particularly. Three, 10, 6. I'll bring them up. I won't necessarily bring them up, but I'll read them. Let's see. Ephesians 3:10 says, to the intent that now unto the principalities and powers in heavenly places might be known by the church the manifold wisdom of God. And what is that? To make all men see what is the fellowship of the mystery, which from the beginning of the world hath been hidden in God, who created all things by Jesus Christ. His purpose was eternal from the beginning. I just love that about Ephesians, and also in 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood. I quoted that, you're right. But against principalities, powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places, in even the heavenlies. Because there are spiritual wickednesses that have access to the heavenlies, at least since the time of Job. And into this time, I see no reason to think otherwise. That the devil cannot still, accuse us before the Lord. It's in the New Testament. He's the accuser of our brethren. If he can't do that, then why is he called so? But there will come a time, I think, when his power will be unleashed on the earth in a more significant way than even we have ever experienced before. Let's see. Titus 3:1. Yeah, put them in mind to be subject to principalities and powers, to obey magistrates and to be ready to every good work. Well, we have to obey them when it's like you said, in Romans, he talks about it, because they are there to enforce the righteousness of society. That's what they're supposed to do. That's why we give them authority and why we give them the power to use the sword, is because they're supposed to be like, stopping murderers and thieves. Like it talked about the thieves. The one thing I want to talk about is like thieves. I like that because there are thieves in the church who would steal. And they want to steal away the word from your heart. Just like in the parable. And the birds. The birds are always coming to steal away the word from your heart. They're building their filthy nests in the tree of God's, the tree of his kingdom, the mustard seed, and they're building their little nests. And they're defecating all over the tree, of course, because that's what they do. And that's a part of the world. There are powers that are corrupt. They should be doing things that are orderly and that we find easy to obey. Because we want to live in an orderly society based on trust, based on righteousness. So we all follow the rules. And so I don't get in trouble with the law hardly ever. I've gotten a speeding ticket I got one a couple of years ago, first time in a long time, and it's just a oversight and things like that happen. But I generally don't get in trouble with the law. I hope no Christian should, unless it's for speaking. If I get in trouble though for preaching the gospel, well then that's because that's a principality I got to fight against, because it's the enemy of the gospel. It's the enemy of God. It's the enemy of God's word. That's why we have freedom of speech in this country, so that people can be free to speak. And there's no one who can tell you can't preach the gospel. You can't say the truth. Though they will try. They're already trying. They're already trying. When people try to criticize the nation Israel, they're being called anti-Semitic. And so what? What if they were anti-Semitic? That used to be okay. I used to, when I was growing up, my dad subscribed to this newspaper called The Spotlight. And he cautioned me. He was like, look, there's a lot of interesting things there about what we'd call conspiracy theories. I forgot what he called it, but basically conspiracy theories. Like the Bilderbergs, this is like 1989, I'm talking, or the early 90s when we were getting this in a newspaper because the internet wasn't really a thing. He's like, but you know what? He's like, there's a lot of conspiracy theories, which is great, but there's a bit of anti-Semitism, which you got to kind of understand that it's there and you got to just deal with it. because it was too interesting to pass up otherwise. He let me know he didn't want me to know that. And it was because they blamed the Jews for a lot of things. Like the Jews, like instead of like, well, they're some of them get up to no good, just like some of these white folks get up to no good. Some of these Italians get up to no good. Some of these Jews do too. And when they do, it's just like in the Old Testament, they call them sons of Belial. These children of Benjamin, certain sons of Belial, who took that woman and raped her. It's like that. That's the kind of people, sons of Belial. He doesn't call them his own children anymore. He didn't call them Benjamin anymore because they serve something else. They become something else. They've been corrupted. So the wind was in their wings, and they lifted up the ephah between the earth and heaven. Whether these are good or bad, whatever, they're taking it away. They're taking the ephah away. They're the garbage scow angels, okay? Ivor Myers just preached last week about Jewish nation difference between Israel and the nation. Well, yeah, and there's a lot of complexities because, criticizing a government's actions and going to war, it's like, if you live in a theocracy, you might be criticizing their religion. Because if, like, for example, let's say the supreme ruler of Iran issued a fatwa declaring a holy war against some country, right? And they went to war. And then, so criticism of that war might be criticism of their religion, specifically of that Shia sect. Just like someone might criticize you for your Seventh-day Adventism. It's just, okay, maybe that's fair. But often it's not. Israel, it's not a theocracy. But it sort of is, weirdly, because their whole legitimacy they claim from the Bible. That's the only reason they could possibly be there. Even though they don't believe in the Bible. They don't believe in God, but they believe God gave them that land. So, the thing is, last I heard, Jesus said, your house is left to you desolate. And he prophesied that they would be driven out of the land again, basically. More or less. I mean, with the destruction of the temple. And they were scattered once again. And as far as being brought back to the land, well, I guess some of them have returned, about half. That's not what's supposed to happen. The prophecy calls for all of them to come back. But the thing is, even in the Old Testament, it was only all the willing. There were always some that were lost in their captivity as far as they became like the heathen. It even says so in the Old Testament. So, there's Jewish people who are Jewish because they follow the Hebrew religion or the Jewish religion, whether it be Orthodox or whatever. And they may also be ethnically Jewish. Some of those people who are ethnically Jewish, that means their tradition is that their family is Jewish, basically. My family is Jewish from some point in the past. That could be from ancient past. It could be from, people talk about the Khazarian thing. The Khazarian thing is so meaningless to me because it's like, okay. It's just like, to me, the Kenites and the sons of the devil. It's like, okay. All right, they're bad because they're Khazarians. So what's our excuse? Why do we sin? It's like, I just think pushing, trying to say a particular people are evil because they're more genetically disposed to evil than other people is silly. I think people have different weaknesses. There are racial differences and stuff, and people's, they're small, but they're visible. People can see kind of, and they're trendy, and they're overall. They're not like you can always have in any place, you have exceptions popping up and exceptional people. But when you're talking about the averages of people, you kind of see patterns. And the Jewish people they're like a mixed people. It's interesting because there were Jews all over the world. There's Jews in Africa who were black. Jews over in China who were, guess what? They looked Asian. Because when the Jews were scattered, they ended up, out of necessity, marrying local people, and they began to look like the people. That's why a lot of the Jews from Europe, guess what? They look white. They don't look like the Jews from the Middle East, who still look like Middle Eastern people. And so it's not exactly a race. It's kind of like a religion. It's an idea. It's kind of a race. It's kind of it's like this weird, very unique in civilization designation where they had a nation at one point, but then they lost it and they became parts of other nations. But then very late now they've decided to reconstitute a national identity. But that does not make that a theocratic, God-ordained national identity, which is what the Old Testament was. And saying, well, just because they did it, God ordained it. Usually when it looks like this, it's more like the king of Assyria to me. This is, like I said, I consider it a synagogue of Satan. They were brought back by God's will. Yes, Satan helped them. The Lord didn't help them. Satan did. I can tell the difference because if the Lord had helped them return, there would have been all the telltale signs, just like in the old days. This time, they return and by God's leave, oh yes. There's a lot of times God says okay, but it's not okay. The days of Gibeah, when we talk about that whirlwind of the Lord, one of the things I think about is Gibeah. In the days of Gibeah. I'm going to bring it up real quick because I always like that story, and I want to bring it up without actually just paraphrasing it, which I can paraphrase all right. The men of Gibeah. It's the one from Kings, I think. Yeah. Let's see. It's going to be harder than I thought. Wait. Oh, no, I know what I need to do. Gibeah, why am I looking that up? I should look at Belial. Belial. There we go. Certain men of the children of Belial. These are, yeah, let me bring it up. Okay. Oh, Gibeah. Right, no, I said Gibeah. Did I say something else? There's this incident where this really awful thing. It's an interesting chapter because it's a lot like Sodom and Gomorrah. And it almost seems like a copy of Sodom and Gomorrah. And it's really interesting. Judges 19. In this story, there was no king, right? There was a certain Levite sojourning on the side of Mount Ephraim. He took a certain concubine out of Bethlehem, Judah. And his concubine played the whore against him and went away from him unto her father's house to Bethlehem, Judah. And there was there for 4 whole months. And her husband arose and he came, whatever. He comes, gets the damsel. He brings her back, but then he comes to Gibeah. And basically, they rape and murder his wife. Right? And so the children of Israel all freak out. And it was so that they saw it, he took a knife, he cut her body in pieces and sent it out to the 12 tribes after this happens, this rape. Very much like Sodom. And they all came to the door at night and banged, except instead of God destroying the city, this time they gave the young lady to the men who raped her until she was dead. Very little different take on the Sodom and Gomorrah story, right? Angels don't come and say, nope, this is how it ends up. This is another day in Sodom, basically, right? The day before. It's not Sodom, but it's a city like it. Okay. So up in, she's dead. And so then the next chapter, 20, this is the part that I think is interesting. Okay, so and he tells the story of how the men of Gibeah rose against me. They beset the house round about, and thought to have slain me and my concubine have they forced, and now she is dead. And I took my concubine, cut her in pieces, etc. So all the people arose as one man, saying, we will not any of us go to his tent, neither will we any of us turn to his house. We will go up by lot against it. We will take 10 men of 100 throughout all the tribes of Israel. And then in verse 11, so they all gathered against the city, and they were knit together as one man in their outrage at this terrible deed. And the tribes of Israel sent men throughout all the tribes of Benjamin, saying, what wickedness is this that thou hast been done among you? Now therefore deliver us the men, the children of Belial, which are in Gibeah, that we may put them to death, and may put away evil from Israel. But the children of Benjamin would not hearken to the voice of their brethren, the children of Israel. But the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together out of the cities to Gibeah to go out to battle against them. They said, we're going to fight you. We're going to defend these rapists. And the children of Benjamin were numbered at that time out of the cities 26,000 men. And among all the people that were with the other ones, 700 chosen men, left-handed, everyone could sling swords. Okay, the men of Israel, beside Benjamin, were numbered 400,000. And these were men of war. So they grossly outnumber the children of Benjamin. And they are right, and the children of Benjamin are wrong. So then they rise up, and they go to the house of God and ask the counsel of God and said, which of us shall go first up to battle against the children of Benjamin? And the Lord said, Judah shall go up first. And the children of Israel rose up in the morning and encamped against Gibeah. And the men of Israel went out to battle against Benjamin. And the men of Israel put themselves in array to fight against them at Gibeah. And the children of Benjamin came forth out of Gibeah and destroyed down to the ground of the Israelites that day 22,000 men. Benjamin kicked their rear end. And the people of the men of Israel encouraged themselves and set their battle again in array in the place where they put themselves in array the first day. And the children of Israel went up and wept before the Lord until even, and asked counsel of the Lord, saying, shall I go up again to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother? And the Lord said, go up against him. And the children of Israel came near against the children of Benjamin the second day. And Benjamin went forth against them out of Gibeah the second day, and destroyed down to the ground of the children of Israel again 18,000 men. All these drew the sword. Then all the children of Israel and all the people went up and came to the house of God and wept, and sat there before the Lord, and fasted that day until even, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And the children of Israel inquired of the Lord, for the ark of the covenant of God was there in those days. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, stood before it in those days, saying, shall I yet go out to battle against the children of Benjamin, my brother, or shall I cease? And the Lord said, go up, for tomorrow I will deliver them into thine hand. And then they finally do. But you see how God can say, go do something, and it's not good. He told them, go fight. Yeah, go fight Benjamin. Who will go first? Send Judah. They just asked who first. They didn't ask, should we go? They didn't ask anything except who first, because they thought we're righteous. We're going to win. Of course, God is on our side. We're on the right side of history. Yeah, it's not always what you think. You know, even when it seems so crystal clear, we're on the right side. Well, that was so bad. You know, like October 7th. Whoa, it was so terrible. I thought it was terrible when I saw October 7th. I wept. I fasted 9 out of 27 days, and several of those in a streak. And I don't say that to brag, just because I meant I seriously sought the Lord's will on it. And I got what I wanted. I had my reward. I got a song I wanted out of it. But it turned me against Israel. Because I could see, I heard what they said, what they intended to do. They talked about it. It was clear they spoke of genocide without using the word, but it was clear, their intent. And I watched them go do it. And then I discovered all the lies. Like all those burnt out bodies in cars that I had seen. Those cars were all pointed towards Gaza because they were fleeing. They were trying to take hostages to Gaza. Then Israel sent in the helicopters with the Hellfire missiles. And a great number of Israelis died from Hellfire missiles, which were fired to prevent them from being taken hostage. A lot of those kids from the rave that they had for some reason next to a concentration camp, I don't know who approved that as a great idea, and then sent the defending army into the north for some reason at that time. It's all very suspicious. We don't always know what God wants. We should be very careful when we think we're executing his vengeance. Vengeance belongs to the Lord. We've got to be very careful. Even when it seems so cut and dry that we have a righteous cause, be careful. You know, the Lord is a righteous judge. But man, that's why Jesus said, judge not that you be not judged. For with what judgment the judgment you judge against other people is the way you're going to be judged. And so, let's be slow to condemn. That's what I was like. Slow to condemn people. It's one thing to caution. It's one thing to admonish or, counsel or, caution is a great thing to tell people. It's like, I would be cautious about that. Anyways, we're out of time. We got to conclude here. Where do they build it? Well, we talked about them taking it to Shinar. Oh, we'll pick it up at chapter 6. I consider that. If we have any more thoughts on it, we can conduct it. It is a bit obscure, but not really. It's the things being taken away. God promising to bless them and to remove the evil from among them. Again, it ultimately becomes a condition. The Lord will take away the evil. But if we invite it back, don't complain to the Lord. The Lord will help us, but we have to be willing, just like in the days of Gibeah, we have to turn to him fully if we want him to use us as his instruments to do something like vengeance. I don't want to execute. I'm a preacher of the gospel. I'm a preacher of the love of God, not of vengeance, but vengeance is coming and it will come, but not through us. It'll come through the hand of the sword of the Lord, Jesus Christ, which proceeds out of his mouth on the day of his return. But also, in the earth, there's all kinds of ways, just like those principalities. Sometimes they do good and sometimes they do evil. But all the time, they bring forth punishment. They can. So while they don't always have to be obeyed, they should always be respected. Understand what we're getting into, that they can be dangerous. They bear not the sword in vain. Neither do we. So, till next time, remember the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, and he is the fulfillment of the law. Thank you so much. I'll remember to check out that. I'm going to go to work right now, and I'm check out Islam Christianity channel. Just check out, see what that's all about. Maybe that's interesting. And I already said my farewell line. So let's have some music from Isaiah 7.
Hear you now.
Oh, house of Jacob.
Is it
David.
small for you